Hello all, it's Jaames Johnson, aka Sulphur Blade. Welcome back to my channel, welcome back to my content, and welcome back to Heads Will Roll and Season 3. That's right, this will be our third run in Heads Will Roll. I'm coming back to this series by popular request. I was hesitant to come back, as with the last DLC, the release of that DLC was pretty buggy. And the game itself is an amazing game. I can't say enough good things about the game itself, but the last DLC that was released gave me a sour taste. There were tons and tons and tons of bugs. And I don't want this to sound overly negative towards a very, from what I understand, a small developer with a small development team. I'm sure they did their best to release a flawless DLC, but it just seemed like they could have done more preparation or more testing before releasing it. And so with this new DLC that's just released, I've been hesitant to jump right into it. However, it's been a couple of weeks since it's dropped, and there's been several bug patches that have gone through, so maybe I won't have the same issue as I did with the last DLC when I jumped into it immediately, and I became a bug tester instead of a game connoisseur. So hopefully we'll be enjoying the game and not running into bugs. With that being said, let's actually just get into this video. So here we are at the creation phase of the Heads Will Roll character, and my account is fairly what's the word I'm looking for? I've done a few runs in Heads Will Roll Reforged, and so I have a fair amount of points to generate a character with. You may not have the luxury of being able to start with this powerful of a character, but you know, you'll get there. Everyone had to start off new, and the game is great. You're gonna love the game regardless. I only play on the Heads Will Roll difficulty level because I enjoy the whole way that things work. In this run, this Jaames Johnson is going to be utilizing a spear. So in the first run, we went with an axe. The second run, I believe we did a hammer. And in this third run, we're going to try out a spear. Now, I've done a few runs off camera, not recorded, and I tend to favor the axe. The axe has far and away become my favorite weapon. I have not really ever used a spear before. This is actually going to be my first time using a spear, so it might go poorly, as I'm not too sure how good of a weapon a spear is, but I guess we'll find out. The thing I'm leaning on here in this character is when we look at the spear and we look at its attacks, it has powerful thrust, which says it adds 1/4 of your strength as damage, increased chance to bypass armor. So the increased chance to bypass armor is the thing we're going to try to play into with the spear. I'm thinking that this weapon is going to be one that, well, we're going to point the we're going to push the sharp stick in through the crevices and the sneaky points between gaps in armor. We're going to bypass that armor. That's the point of the spear, in my opinion, is it's to get around the armor and get into the gaps between the armor. So we're going to try to play into that. We're playing into the chance to bypass armor attack of the spear here with the trinket Fencing Dagger. Evidently Fencing Dagger has been nerfed. Fencing Dagger used to have an increased chance to bypass armor by 20. It's now 10. So they've nerfed this trinket, but I'm still going to give it a try. I wish I could have tried the spear before they nerfed the trinket, but we're going to give it a go anyway. So this is going to help us bypass the armor using that attack. That's the thought process there. So this is kind of the must trinket of the group. Then of the other 3 trinkets, we're going to go with Iron Claws. Iron Claws is going to increase our damage by 4 if the strike fully or partially bypasses armor. Since this is supposedly, if things go right, a build about bypassing armor, then we should consistently be getting an extra 4 points of damage on top of our spear's rather lackluster 9 points. So 9 plus 4 is 13, plus 25% of our strength added on to that, which should get us somewhere around 16, 17, maybe 18, depending on how strong we get. Now, when you think about that, that's less than a normal axe strike, right? It's not a lot of damage. But with the axe strike, you have to go through the armor. You're not bypassing it. This should be giving us consistent damage to the player itself, not to the player's armor. I'm hesitant about this build because something about 18 damage directly to the player doesn't scream a lot to me when I'm used to just chopping people's heads off with an axe, doing, mega damage. I have a feeling that this is going to be a lackluster build. But it's always nice to try new things, so we're going to try new things. That leaves the remaining trinket. I would have liked to have gone with the dagger that gave 3 extra points of damage, but it doesn't seem to exist anymore. It's not in the list. I've looked through the list several times now, and maybe the developer moved it into one of these new unlock places, as it was a very popular trinket that lots of people used. Maybe it's been moved. So I don't have access, or maybe it doesn't even exist anymore, but there was a dagger that gave 3 extra points of damage. I might have liked to have gone with that to help up this whole damage as a whole, as that would get gotten us around 20 to 21 points of damage, which I would have felt better about. But since we don't have that, there are 3 other trinkets I've been looking at. There is Old Reliable, the Swordmaster's Ring, which is going to give me plus 3 weapon skill, and it's going to make me resistant to blinds and feints. 3 weapon skill should translate to a much more reliable chance to hit, because your to hit is basically factored off of how good of your weapon skill is. If you don't have good weapon skill, you're not going to hit the broadside of a barn. If you're not hitting the broadside of the barn, you're not going to do any damage, and you're not going to be bypassing the armor, and you're not going to be doing anything, because you're just going to be missing. So you want to be able to hit. That being said, 3 points of weapon skill equals what? I don't know. I don't know the math. I have ideas in my head that it's more than if we look at the Raider's hood here, it improves hit and dodge chance by 10. Ten points of hit is equal to what in melee skill? If I have one additional melee skill, is that 10 points to hit? If I have 2 additional melee skill, is that 10 points to hit? If I have 3 additional weapon skill, is that 10 points to hit? I don't know the math comparison here. However, it also increases your dodge chance by 10. That's kind of cool. Makes us, having the extra dodge, makes us somewhat more survivable. However, the Swordmaster's Ring gave us resistance to blinds and feints, which made us more survivable. Though dodge tends to work against all attacks, not just the gimmicky ones that are like feints, right? And blinds. Those are a smaller subset of attacks, where dodge is against most every attack. Then that brings in one more trinket I've been debating, and that is the parrying dagger down here. So the parrying dagger gives me one additional weapon skill, which, again, that's going to increase our chances to hit. Mathematically, obviously it's less than the +3 from the Swordmaster's Ring, and this will give us a guaranteed dodge in combat for every 10 points of coordination. We've got 25 points currently. We can easily get that up to 30, if not 40. So the dagger here would give us, for now, 2 guaranteed dodges in combat. Possibly 3, maybe even 4 guaranteed dodges in combat. That's pretty good. That's not a chance to dodge. I'm guaranteed to dodge upwards of 2 to 3 to 4 times. However, some fights get rather long, and so if you've shot your wad on your dodge guarantees, well, now you don't have the Raider's Hood anymore, right? The Raider's Hood gives you that +10 dodge all the time. It doesn't run out. It's forever. So I'm kind of torn between these 3 trinkets, because they all are kind of like the same trinket, but mathematically I'm not sure which one is better. They all give me a little bit of survivability, like, you know, guaranteed 2 to 4 dodges. That's survivability. Resistance from blinds and feints. That's survivability. 10 extra dodge. Every single attack is survivability. I think this one gives us the best survivability. If I have to be honest, this is the one I'm leaning for if I'm just getting this trinket for survivability. But honestly, I'm more thinking about this trinket for the purposes of being able to hit with the spear. I think this one gives us the least ability to hit with the spear. And I think the Swordmaster's Ring gives us the best chance to hit. But the Swordmaster's Ring, I think, gives us the worst survivability, being that it's the feints and the blinds that it makes us resistant to, which is only a small subset of attacks. So then that brings us back to the hood, the Raider's Hood, which I think is kind of a medium of both of them. I think it's going to give us more survivability than the Swordsmaster's Ring, but not quite as much as the Parrying Dagger. And I think it's going to give us a better hit than the Parrying Dagger, but not as much as the Swordsmaster's Ring. So that's where we're at. Which one of these three trinkets do I go with? And that has been my thought process that I've been sitting here debating. And then there's one other hoop that falls into this. The Raider's Hood only works if characters wields a one-handed weapon with no shield. The spear is a one-handed weapon. One hand. And it has an attack here. Feint Strike, which ignores shields, requires weapon to be held with both hands, meaning Feint Strike does not work with a shield. So if I want to use the special Feint Strike skill, I have to forego using a shield. Which there again, that plays into the Raider's Hood, allows me to use the Raider's Hood because it works without a shield. I think we're going to go with the Raider's Hood. I think it's the medium of the two things I'm looking for. It's going to give us a bit more survivability, not as much hit than the Swordmaster's Ring, but I think I hope it's going to work for us. So those are our three trinkets. So we have the Iron Claws, which is going to give us additional damage, plus this blood loss effect, which hopefully that's cool. I don't know. That's like icing on the cake, right? The Fencing Dagger that has been nerfed and only gives us 10 to bypass armor. It also gives us a little bit of icing that it'll allow us to instantly feint the enemy if we need to do that, but I don't feint very often in combat, so I don't see this being all that useful, but it's there. And then we're going to have this vanilla plus 10 chance to hit and dodge that will probably not be as effective as more melee skill, and isn't going to be as an effective dodge as having a guaranteed dodge, but it's going to always work, right? It's always there, so the Raider's Hood should stand out more for us in very long, drawn-out fights. So that's what we're going to go with the trinkets. Going over the rest of the build, I've gone with this Kettle Hat and Aventail. These two combined, you can put them together in crafting. They make a pretty good pair. And I've gone with the Blackheart and the Chainmail armor. Again, those two combined, when you put them together, make a pretty good pair. I've gone with the Nobleman's Scabbard. That's going to give us the most prestige right off the bat. We're going to put in that scabbard the hunting sword to allow us to get more leather when we're scavenging. We're going to start off with plate legs because we can afford it. We're going to go with the reinforced mail gauntlets as they're stat efficient. Right now, when you start off your new character, sometimes, you know, I could take a fancier, more stat utilizing gauntlets, but they're going to, you know, use up more agility, endurance, and coordination. And when you're a fresher, newer character like we are, that's not always in your best interest, because these stats are pretty important, actually. So I prefer these gauntlets in the early game. We will naturally pick up better gauntlets later on in the story. And at that point, we will have more agility, endurance, and coordination to be able to afford wearing them. So I'm happy with these gauntlets for now. Yeah, so that leaves us with quite a bit of generation points left over. I don't have anything on my neck. I might actually, because I have the extra stuff to burn, again, I don't want to use like a whole lot of stats if I can avoid it. So something like the Jousting Gorget uses 333. Just far too much this early in your character's career. 123 again, far too much. 111, still a bit more than I want. You know, it's 15 neck armor and 50 neck cover at a 111. 11 more cover, but now we're back to 2. So we're still using up 3 of our points here. Yeah, no. What about the padded leather Gorget? Okay, this is a little bit more affordable. 100 cover is pretty good. Neck armor only 7, but then again, we're not going to need that much neck armor at this point. So this maybe. Or do we just go with the cheapest one, which only uses 1 stat point? Honestly, double the cover area, 3 points of prestige. Half the cover area, no prestige. Is that coordination penalty worth it? Plus 2 more points of armor. I think it is. I think this is the one we're going to go with. Alright. So still, we have stuff to burn. We might get some consumables. And I'm thinking something like a couple of these major vitality brews. If I've had lots of runs that have ended, and they've generally ended because I just get into such a bad state with my character in such a long, drawn-out fight that, yeah, it's pretty much game over, and I have nothing to, you know, if I had something like some of these fancy potions, that would definitely kind of turn my character around and allow me to get a lot farther. So if I buy a couple of these potions and just carry them around till endgame, basically purchase them now and hold on to them till far later when my character needs this type of a fancy potion, might be worth the buy. So I could see... Oh, my inventory's full? You're kidding. Well, that's... I guess that's that. Civic talent? Yeah. I really would have liked to have gotten one of these to just hang on to till the end game, but if I got rid of the Gorget, I could possibly do it. I don't really need the Gorget right now. I really don't. I just want to reset the Gorget. I don't want to reset everything. I'm just throwing some points in a crossbow. I don't use crossbows. Never do. But we have the extra character generation points there, so I suppose why not? If you're wondering why vitality is only at 3, it's because when you start the game and you start off with these huge stats, the game won't let you train. And so I purposely leave a stat like vitality low, so I actually have something to do, something to train, and training vitality, in fact, trains other skills. Like, I tend to get Colossus a lot, so every, I think, 3 points it is that you get into vitality gets you another point of strength. Great. All I have to do is train vitality, and I'm also training strength at the same time. So that works out great for me. Alright, so we're going to proceed as the character is here. This is how we're going to start off. Alright, a breakout of yet another war between England and France was barely a surprise to anyone. The rivalry between the two kingdoms has lasted for more than a century, and small but regular armed conflicts have become commonplace for them. This war seemed to many to be an ordinary event, but the English king had other plans. I'm going to read this because, well, obviously you're watching a Let's Play and you want the story, I'm sure. Some of you may have watched this game and other people and you know the story, but some of you may be watching for the first time, so I'm going to read it all. This time, he had no interest in lesser goals and aimed as high as to ascend to the throne of France itself, using its ongoing dynasty crisis as a casus belli. War preparations started by Edward III have surpassed any of his past military campaigns. Understanding the scope of his ambitions, the King of England did not delude himself. The war that he was about to embark on was going to be the greatest in history, and for an undertaking like that, a proper army was in order. The king began gathering forces long before declaring the war. Long negotiations and uncounted secret agreements boasted the royal army with numerous allies as well as mercenaries from all over Europe. The core of his force, as it has always been, was constituted by the best of the England's chivalry, eagerly awaiting their chance to finally outshine the French chevalier and claim the laurels of the best in the world. For the honorable knights, this coming war was also an opportunity to amass wealth off its spoils and bask in the glory of victorious battle. You too end up among the ranks of the king's countless soldiers, but unlike the knights and mercenaries eagerly enlisting out of their own will, you, a peasant's son, did not have much of a choice, as besides professional warriors, the army also requires those to do its dirty work, both in the meaning of digging ditches and being able to give up their lives for dirt cheap. So, I think the game needs to alter this story sometimes. So this story makes a lot of sense when you're playing the game for the first time. But if you're like me and you've played through the game several times and you've built up as many character generation points as I have, this story should recognize the fact that my character is starting with a huge amount of generation points, and it should adjust this story to have me coming from maybe a lesser noble family, and maybe I am a squire and or a knight. I think that would be a good thing. If the developer ever watches this, you should consider that, as at this point, yeah, I'm used to being the dirty peasants guy, but I'm walking into this in plate mail. I'm walking in this with a noble scabbard. I'm geared out better than most knights at this point. You know, maybe it's time the story treats me as a knight. Just saying. By royal decree, a militia force was drafted from the free folk. Many wealthier people were able to bribe their way out of service, but you, coming from a poor family, had no such opportunity, and thus you received a royal gift for your 18th birthday, an unexpected journey to the shores of France. Weapon in hand, you find yourself treading in unfriendly soil. You wonder whether you will ever see your home again. Prologue. A journey begins. Castle Dunkirk, northern France. Welcome to Heads Will Roll Reforged. Soon you will embark on your first adventure, but before you do, we have to warn you, not all risks are worth taking, and not all fights are worth fighting. And that's true, guys. If you're playing this game for the first time, those words should be something you live by. Again, you're going to see me do things that are far riskier than anyone should do with their first character. So don't try to copy what I'm going to end up doing, because again, my account and my character's more advanced than a new character is going to be. Anyway, blindly charging forward without considering the circumstances and consequences is the fastest way to get yourself killed. Heads Will Roll will try to present the player with a lot of difficult choices, but your answers will never be right or wrong. There's always something to lose and something to gain, no matter the choice. A good strategy for success is to approach the adventure with the intent to simply survive rather than become a hero. Don't go on dangerous endeavors if you're not confident in your success, as you may be severely punished for unpreparedness. Some quests will fail, some characters you meet will grow to hate or despise you, and sometimes you will have to flee from battle in order to save your life. Don't let these things bother you too much, as your real goal is to make it to the very end in one piece. And last but not least, remember to keep track of time. Training, shopping, adventuring, and completing quests will all consume it. Neglect one too much in favor of the others, and you're in for unpleasant surprises. You've received a salary in accordance with your rank, 55 florins. You received a bonus payment in accordance with your prestige level, 0 florins. I don't have any of my gear actually equipped yet. And there's no way to equip it in order to get a prestige bonus at this point. So yeah, you're stuck getting 0 florins at this point. No way to equip yourself prior to this. Alright, with that being said, let's go to our character. And let's go to our inventory and actually equip our stuff. Sheath that. Equip. Equip. Alright, am I able to do crafting right off the bat? It's been a few months since I played, so I'm going to be a little rusty at some things here and there. Such as whether or not I can do this. But I can. Okay, good. There we go. Alright, inventory. Equip. So notice this is 111. That is very efficient armor that gives you very good armor very efficiently. That's why I happen to utilize that chainmail and placard. It's not the absolute best armor, but in my opinion, at this early stage of the game, it is the best armor because again, your new character at 25, 25, 25, 25 stats, even maxed out at 25, 25, 25, 25 starting, those 25 points are important. You know, we're not at 30 and 40 points yet. So if you can efficiently get armor for the least stat cost, it's better that way. And so that's why I happen to go with these particular pieces. So there I am. I'm fairly well equipped. What is this? I didn't get a pouch, did I? No, I didn't. I think I screwed up on that. Oh well. It's fine. That might hurt us, but we'll make do. We'll get a patch the old-fashioned way by playing the game. Did I say patch? A pouch, not patch. Pouch. All right. What should I do at this point in time? Well, we're gonna introduce ourselves to the doctor. Her clothes, appearance, and demeanor immediately give away the fact that she is a foreigner. As she glances over at you, her eyes dim. She obviously loses any interest in you completely. I'm looking for a doctor. The thing is, I'm looking for a doctor. Well, you found one. My name is Cecilia Grimaldi, and I'm a doctor in the service of the King of England. And you seem to be from the militia, right? I should have the prestige. I should be wearing enough prestige with the noble scabbard, the plate mail, and everything that I should be able to lie to her here. And we're going to do that. We're going to introduce ourselves as a knight in the Earl's service. A knight, then, eh? In Earl Northampton's service? In that case, I beg your pardon, sire. Prestige, success. We accomplished it. But let me ask, do you dress like that because you are poor? Or is it just Northampton's fashion that I'm not aware of? I'm afraid I'm not up to date with the latest English trends. I prefer to be known by my deeds, not by my clothes. I prefer to stand out for my actions rather than for bright, expensive rags. What loud and noble words. Very convenient, by the way, for a person in a shabby gambeson. And let me ask you, Sir Knight, have you already done any things that you could be proud of? I would be glad to hear about your feats. Not yet, but you won't have to wait long. I haven't done anything significant yet, but rest assured, you don't have to wait long. This war will make me the most famous knight in all of Europe. Yeah, I definitely believe it. I just hope that I won't have to pull the arrow out of your cold body a couple of weeks from now. So, how can I help you? I'm going to ask about recipes. Forgive me if my question comes off tactless to you, but can you please share some of your recipes? I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about. I meant recipes for medicine and various potions. But why would you need it? Do you not trust my skills? It's quite opposite. I completely trust your skills. However, every drop of blood counts on the battlefield, and I just want to be sure that in case of injury, I can provide myself with first aid. So I would be able to live a little longer and get to you. I see, yes, you are probably right. Many deaths could have been avoided if the soldiers knew even the basics of field medicine. Well, I'll be happy to share my recipe with you, but keep in mind, doctor's time is expensive. You can now purchase various crafting recipes. Okay, and ask about healing services. If I ever need services of a doctor, then one of the doctors will definitely help you, but it is unlikely that it will be me. I'm here to monitor the health of more important people. Most minor injuries can be healed free of charge, but if more serious medical attention is needed, then I'm afraid there will be a price. By the way, free advice. Try to treat your wounds and injuries as soon as possible. You can get rid of most ailments if you deal with them in a timely manner. However, if time is lost, the consequences of a particular wound can easily become chronic, and then there would be nothing to do about it. Alright, and ask about how she ended up in the war. Forgive my curiosity, but how did a girl like you end up in the war? I'm not sure this is your business. And there, we've introduced ourselves to the good doctor. And trust me, that will be useful going forward. You're going to want to introduce yourself to, for instance, the doctor there as soon as possible. In the camp, you can spend your time to relax, relieve your stress, and hang out with other soldiers while performing various activities. All of them help relieve stress in their own ways and by different amounts, so it could be wise to try all of them and see the results for yourself. In addition to that, the camp also serves as an important social hub where you can gather information and receive tasks from other characters. Alright. So we're going to start off with some training. Remember, we started off with 25 of each skill. We still have 25 strength, but we have used up quite a bit of our agility by simply putting on the gear that we're wearing. And same thing with the endurance and coordination. We don't really have the florins for training with a coach. This is very exhausting solo practice at this point, so we're probably going to go with training vitality. Oh, I'm screwing up. Character. Yes. Talents. We need to assign our talents. We're using a spear, which I think counts as a polearm. Yeah, I think that gives it away. So, there, increases the hit chance. That's good. Chance to bypass enemy armor with the melee. That I think we definitely want, because that's kind of like our whole gimmick with this build, is to bypass armor. Lower stamina consumption, increase the chance to bypass enemy shield, increase bleed chance, increase shield damage, increase chance of inflicting injury, increase chance of critical strike. Okay, bypass enemy armor, we're going to start with that. stamina is kind of huge. In my opinion, the stamina game is a huge portion of the game itself, and if you can manage to keep your stamina high, that means you're defensively tankier. The more stamina you have, the easier it is for you to dodge and avoid being hit. So obviously the less stamina we use in attacks, the more survivable we become. So we're going to go with that. Now the last point. Chance to bypass enemy shield with a melee attack. So we have that special attack that's supposed to bypass enemy shields. I don't think this is going to help that special attack become better at bypassing a shield. So I don't think this exactly is a good use of a point. Bleeding could be useful. Trying to damage our way through a shield with a spear, I don't think is going to be our way of doing it. I think we're going to try to go around the spear with that special attack. So again, I don't think that's going to be a useful use of a point. Increase the chance of inflicting an injury. Certainly useful. Bleeding, injury, useful. And then critical strike, 3% chance. So 5% chances of something happening is usually, well, more likely than 3%. Obviously, I would love to have a critical strike. I would love to have an injury, and I would love to have a bleed happen. All three of those things are great. Which one is going to be the most bang for the buck? One of the two 5% chances. Is it bleed? Or is it injury? I think it's injury. When a guy is injured, his ability to fight is severely hampered. Which means you're much safer. There's much less chance you're gonna be injured by him because he's injured. So we're gonna go with the injury. Alright, so the weapon points have been... And now the civic talents. This is the part that I'm upset that I already did that training. Because I already did that training. And, well, because of that, I missed out on a little bit of Colossus that I could have gotten. Every third time you train with Vitality, you would receive yada yada yada. Okay. One would think that Acrobat and Colossus fight each other, and they do. But honestly, I've often taken both of them at the same time, and it can be useful to do so. I should have gotten Armor Smith before I crafted my armor. Another blunder. Inventory space, that's always nice. Once per chapter grants you 2 additional vitality points if you use 3 or more different camp rest options, including gambling, playing the lute, drinking alcohol, or visiting a brothel. That's interesting. Sorry if I'm not reading all of these. I like woodsman. Alright, I think I'm gonna... am I gonna get acrobat? Yeah, because it grants me a guaranteed dodge in combat. I like that skill. And also, it's going to be useful when I'm training, because when I am able to train coordination, I'm going to eventually be able to get agility out of it. Yeah, it's going to take my strength away a little bit, but the same thing happens with Colossus, right? So every time I yeah, I'm gonna go with Armor Smith. Am I gonna go with Beast of Burden? I don't like going to the brothel because you tend to pick up this disease-like thing every other time you go there, and it becomes a problem. Obviously, I'm not going to be using a crossbow, so the crossbow portions of Huntsman is kind of useless, but getting the 2 more pieces of leather when scavenging and the extra damage dealt to animals is going to be useful, so we're going to take Huntsman just for that. Selling items for an additional amount of money certainly would be useful. But at this point, I don't think we're going to be selling a lot of items. Two extra points of vitality per chapter. I don't remember ever... This is a new perk I don't remember having in the past. There's a fair number of chapters. That would equate to a fair amount of extra vitality. If you use 3 or more different camp rest options, including gambling. Sometimes I gamble. I mean, playing loot, I don't tend to do that. Drinking alcohol. So gambling, drinking alcohol, you have to have the alcohol to drink. Or visiting the brothel. And again, visiting the brothel costs money. I tend to do the, it doesn't have the praying listed here. Is that an oversight? Or does praying not count towards this? Because if I can pray and I can gamble, and if I pick up a loot, well then that's 3 things that I can easily do that's not going to cost a lot of money. I don't know. I don't feel like I should test it if I don't know how it works. Not in this playthrough anyway. Increase inventory space by 5. Definitely, that would be useful. Lucky Devil, considerably boost our luck, would be useful. I wonder if Lucky Devil would be enough to trigger some of the luck events we are going to run into very early on. I don't know if Lucky Devil is enough to provide enough luck for the events I'm thinking of, where you're getting shot by a guy with a crossbow or not. Let's go with it. Luck is always useful. Probably get Beast of Burden next, as I'm going to want the 5 extra space, I'm sure. Probably going to regret not getting it right now. We'll see. Okay, so I'm going to go do this one more time. And in order to rest, we're going to head out into the woods and scavenge. You get out of the camp and go to the surrounding forest to replenish your supplies, heading towards the unknown adventures lying ahead. One of the perks I took should allow this to replenish my rest period, and also because I have the hunting sword and some other perks that give me extra leather, this should be a fairly lucrative activity. There's that fatigue recovery I was talking about. Wandering around the countryside, you encounter a wandering merchant selling all kinds of potions and elixirs. The merchant is clearly desperate to sell his wares, going as far as to boasting about their potent effects. Well, this is... we wanted something other than the traveling merchant at this point, because we don't really have any money. As he sifts through his flasks, he prattles on, incessantly making grandiose promises of everlasting life, extraordinary health, luck of the devil, and invincibility in battle. Among the things he has for sale are Dragon's Blood, which doubled the health of anyone who takes a sip; Tears of the Phoenix, which heal all injuries, wounds, and disease known to man; and Witch's Brew, which brings the dead back to life. Essence of Luck, which guarantees eternal fortune in all endeavors to those who would consume it. And finally, a Potion of Eternal Life, which grants immortality. The merchant himself does not look trustworthy one bit, but his promises are indeed alluring. Sorry, we're not buying anything. Does not seem to be a wise decision, so you decline his offer and continue on your way. Alright, so this is what we got on our trip. We got 2 pieces of leather here, a couple poisonous plants, some healing herbs. Using your hunting equipment, you score some game to sell for money. The hunting sword success, 35 florins received from hunting. Thanks to your talent as a huntsman, you managed to get some game for sale, 20 florins received. Wandering through the forest, you are gradually overcome by an increasingly growing sense of danger. And your gut feeling turns out to be true when you unexpectedly stumble upon a giant boar, leaving just a few steps between you and the boar. Well, it's a good thing I have a big old boar spear. But the hunting sword you're armed with allows you to quickly dispatch the savage meat. Well, there we go. The rest of your way back goes smoothly without any more adventure. You sell the boar meat for more florins. There we go. We made some cash. Very nice. Okay, so gambling tends to be the most effective of the ways to rest. Praying tends to be the least effective, but the miracles from praying can be very useful, though praying tends to be a better way to go about it if you're specced into that route. I'm not really specced into that route. Okay, we have no alchemist tools and no sewing kit. Got 129. Sewing kit is going to be... Yep. We're going to want... to buy up all the leather and cloth, as every chapter you get leather and cloth for trade, and once you buy it out, it's gone. And if you don't buy it out, well, you don't buy it out, right? You're kind of that cloth and that leather that becomes available every chapter. You want to get a hold of it. It's going to become important if you start capitalizing on it as soon as possible. And I'll show you how to do that. Okay. What can we make? So we got a water skin here from 2 leather. If we throw 4 leather together, we can make a big water skin. In fact, we're going to do that. If we throw a couple cloth together... Wait, it's only 1 cloth for a bandage? Evidently. Oh. Well, what's the difference? Oh, this is a tourniquet, right? Right. Get some water, some canteens made. Canteen plus a healing herb. I think that's an alchemy thing. Alright. 20? Yeah, we'll buy that. Now let's double check here. Canteen plus healing herb is a medicine. Two healing herbs, I think, is a medicine too. I thought it was. Anyway, let's go with another canteen, another. Whoops. No. Cloth wine bottle. Medicine canteen. Wine bottle. Medicine and healing herb. That's what I'm thinking of. Okay, so medicine, healing herb. There, we've got a a few things made here. And we can even we equip these somewhere? No, we need a pouch. Can't believe we started without a pouch. Is that something we can craft? That's a trinket. Okay. Well, let's just go back to training. Okay, having spent a bit of time in the camp, you gradually get to know and make friends with various people, including several other young men drafted for the militia. All of you have quite a lot in common, including the fact that, originating from poor families, you were forced to go to war without anything even remotely resembling decent weapons or armor. One of the guys, going by the name Bartholomew, and having a rather shady past, suggests you fix this situation and presents you with a plan. His idea is to borrow the necessary equipment from someone who is not in such dire need as you, the guards of the castle Dunkirk, that is towering above your camp. According to Bartholomew, the men guarding the castle are guards, in name only. They've been drafted from the surrounding countryside just as the war started, and they can barely tell which side of the halberd goes towards the enemy. Security is as bad as it gets, so sneaking into one of the armories in the far tower should be a piece of cake. Everything else would be figured out on site, Bartholomew claims. He will take care of any locks that could be found there, so you just have to grab and carry away as much armor and weapons as you please. Several soldiers are rather impressed and willing to try. They already plan to pull it off this night. Bartholomew looks at you. Do I want to go on this shady little adventure? What am I feeling like this run? Yeah, let's help Bartholomew this run. You and several other soldiers are willing to take part. Bartholomew insists, excuse me, you don't dilly-dally and go at midnight. You agree to meet at the watchtower at midnight. Virtue lowered by 10. Reputation with the soldiers has increased. New quest added, Castle Heist. You have just received your first quest. All active quests and their descriptions are listed in the quest and travel section. Alright, let's go do the Castle Heist. Or, sorry. As agreed, you depart from the camp and arrive at the farthest watchtower at midnight. Bartholomew and a couple of the other soldiers are already waiting for you there. Bartholomew, clearly skilled in local geography, confidently leads you along a hidden path through a ravine and dense thickets of bushes. After about a quarter of an hour this way, you initially let yourself into the tower through a secret entrance. Inside, Bartholomew once again instructs you, forbidding you to make any sound and requiring you to move completely silent. Trying to find the weapons room in the endless maze of passages, doors, and stairs that represent the interior of the tower, you find yourself on the creaking plank floors of one of the galleries. One by one, your comrades manage to carefully walk on it without making any unnecessary sounds. It's your turn now. Gently stepping on the boards with the grace of a domestic cat, you overcome the obstacle without any problems. Agility check passed. After another quarter of an hour of strenuous wandering and games of hide and seek with sleepy guards, you finally manage to reach the cherished armory. While you and two comrades are watching the situation, Bartholomew is busy with the lock. You are starting to get worried, but a couple of minutes later he draws your attention with a low whistle and smiling invites you with a gesture to the now open door. The choices of weapons and equipment that await you inside turns out to be not very impressive, but it still looks very solid. A rusty falchion, a rondel dagger, a poor man's shield, and an iron helm. All garbage, but that garbage is at least worth some money. And luckily we had enough inventory space. Having picked up everything that you liked, you hastily embark on the return journey. Luck seems to be smiling on you, and the journey goes back without incident. But suddenly, in the dark corner, one of the doors opens before your nose, and you find yourself face to face with a guard emerging from there. Hardly making out your outline in the dark, he asked who is in front of him. You don't really know what to do, and glance at Bartholomew and his comrades who have gone a little ahead. They are desperately signaling something to you with their hands, but you cannot distinguish their gesture in the dark. The situation quickly becomes critical. Try to stun the guard. Realizing how desperate your situation is, you make a decision that seems to you to be the only right one, and gathering all of your strength into a fist, you land a sweeping hook to the jaw for the guard. Perhaps your epic strength, or perhaps simply from the sudden drowsiness, the guard falls to the ground like a bag, and your headlong rush to flee, strength check passed. Running for your dear life away from the tower, you cannot get rid of the feeling that they're already chasing you, and you're about to be caught. But when after a few minutes you finally find yourself outside by the ravine, you are surprised to realize that the silence around you at night is not disturbing by anything except your own heavy breathing. Bartholomew pats you on the shoulder with a friendly grin, praising your determination. He also adds something about the good old days, but you don't quite understand what he's talking about. Safely returning to the camp, you fall asleep thinking about the adventures you've just experienced and realizing that you may have just made new good friends. Reputations with the soldiers is increased by 5. Bartholomew has become your friend. EXP from completing the quest plus 20. Alright, Rusty Falcon. Poor Man's Shield, Iron Helm, Rondel Dagger, and Poison Plants are gone. With that, we really need a pouch. None of these things are all that useful without a pouch. Okay.
Oh, you know who I didn't talk to? The blacksmith.
Who are you and what do you need? I'm looking for a blacksmith. Well, you found him, and he has his hands full. Now spit it out or get lost and don't distract me from work. I need to repair my equipment. Repair your equipment? I think you have it all mixed up, boy. Do I look like your personal blacksmith? Damn knights have already buried us up to our throats in their broken junk. We are all sweating our arses off here. And you come asking? I'm not asking you to help me for free. I'm willing to pay well for the job. Well done. Ha! What a smartass. I'd gladly pay for a job well done from my own pocket. It's a shame there's no one around here who can actually do that. Let's make a deal. You do 3 shifts at the forge to help me out, and I'll take a look at your junk. I'll pay you for every shift, too. If your hands aren't actually growing out of your arse, you might even earn some decent coin. New quest added laborer. Working at the forge is a camp activity that acts as temporary part-time job. Unlike other activities, this one increases your fatigue instead of lowering it. However, forge duty increases your craftsmanship and earns you some money, with the amount depending on your craftsmanship. Working at the forge has been added to your camp activities. We have very little time left, so we're gonna pray. We lost reputation with the soldiers, but we gained some virtue. And off to probably some sort of fight. After spending about a week at Castle Dunkirk, the army eventually begins its march to the southwest. Your regiment has been assigned to the advance guard, led by the king's son, Edward of Woodstock, the prince. With about half a day's march separating him from the main force, Edward's main goal is to scout ahead and make sure there are no major French reinforcements in sight. Arriving at Cambrai, you see a large French convoy with supplies that is entering through the main gate. The town obviously has not been prepared to handle a long siege yet, and stands vulnerable. The young prince, eager to prove himself to his father, chooses a daring move to try and take the city by charging through the yet open gates. Time is of the essence, so Edward leads the attack immediately. Alright. I don't think there's anything for us to equip. No. We have no pouch. So all of our consumables here are pointless. Concealed by the forest surroundings of Cambrai, the English managed to get close enough to catch the defenders by surprise. The prince spearheads the cavalry charge forward, crushing everything under them and breaking into the city. You and your fellow militiamen try to follow in their tracks as fast as you can, but the difference in speed is just too great. By the time you finally got into the gates, there's already a large group of enemy soldiers, guards, and militiamen gathering to block your way. Welcome to the war. Very soon you'll have to shed your first blood, but before you do this, it would be wise to be acquainted with the main principles of Heads Will Roll's combat system. You want a tutorial? No. I understand it. Alright, we are going to go from offensive stance to a balanced stance. Balanced stance is kind of the key. Offensive stance is going to make you very easy to hit. Defensive stance is going to take away your ability to hit. So balance is kind of like well, the balance between the two. You're not as easy to hit, and you still have a better than not chance of actually hitting things. Now the question is, do I need to do any fancy attacks at this stage in the game? So the limbs does damage to fatigue, but less damage to actual health. The body here does just the standard 1.0 multiplier for damage. The green dice is telling me I have a 100% chance of bypassing his armor without having to do a special attack to do so. The neck would be the most damaging hit, but I only have a 51% chance of actually hitting. And the head, I have a 71% chance of actually hitting, which is pretty good. And the head would do 1.5 damage. But I only have a 35% chance. Unless, let's go back. If I use powerful thrust, and I go for the head, my chance has increased to, but I have a less chance of actually hitting. I think we're going to go for the body. Now the thought process here is that it's going to take 2 attacks to kill this guy. I'm not going to be able to kill him in 1 attack. So already I'm used to being able to take my big old axe and just whacking this guy and he's dead. But I don't have a big old axe to whack this guy with to kill him in 1 shot. I have this spear, and it's going to take 2 hits. No way around it. So right now, you can see I've used a little bit of this green bar. I could attack again, thus lowering the green bar. But he'll be dead anyway, right? How much damage does this attack do? I think this should kill him. Okay. Okay, we're going to have to rest here because we don't want this green bar to get too low. So what we're going to do is we're going to change our stance to defensive stance and we're going to hit recover. Now he pulled off that feint because I was in defensive stance. It would have been harder for him to actually pull off that feint if I had stayed in balanced stance. So we're going to go back to balanced stance.
And we're going to recover one more time. And now we're going to attack. We're going to do the powerful thrust again. Oh, actually, look at that. We have a big time chance of just getting them in one hit. We're going for the gusto. And of course we missed. We're going to recover. And we're going for the gusto again. Okay, unable to sustain your attack, the enemy are slowly giving in and soon begin the hasty retreat. With a pause in the action, you take a look around and see several bodies of your dead foes. Looting, especially during active combat, is generally frowned upon in the army. This, however, does not deter many soldiers, predominantly from poorer backgrounds, from pillaging their rivals' corpses. Their motives are easy to understand. In war, even a single piece of gold equipment can make the difference between life and death. We're going to search. Because, Soldier's Cauldron, what the flip is that? A worn-out but sturdy iron cauldron, a trusty companion of any soldier. It's a trinket, huh? That's interesting. Cozy boots, a rusty falcon, lesser silver ring. Right, these cozy boots are kind of interesting because scavenging takes less time. I could keep these cozy boots around for when I go on my hunting trips and just swap out my trinkets as needed. I've never done that before in a playthrough, but I could see me actually doing that. So I'm going to keep these cozy boots for the long haul instead of selling them, and I'm actually gonna swap them out for when I do my hunting trips going forward. Alright, due to the confusion, you managed to overcome the poorly organized defenders in a swift and rather hectic fight. Their tactical retreat into the walls quickly escalates to a chaotic rout. You storm into the town proper, hot on their heels. Inside the walls, however, the situation is already changing. The prince's knights are struggling to hold against the superior number of French, and slowly but surely are falling back towards the main gate. The prince could definitely use some infantry support, but rushing to his aid may prove to be a dangerous undertaking. Not willing to leave Prince Edward in danger, the Earl quickly calls for volunteers to join the rescue efforts. The rest are told to hold the city gates for a safe retreat thereafter. It seems only seasoned and fierce warriors are joining the Earl. It's unlikely someone will point a finger at you if you refuse, especially given that you are wounded and exhausted, barely able to even stand straight. What? I'm not wounded. I'm not exhausted. This is clearly a good opportunity to prove yourself to the Earl, maybe even to the Prince himself, but right now, on the other side of the castle of the scale lies no less than your own life, and the question is whether or not this is the time to risk it. Charge! Driven by courage and some impulsive honor, you join the daredevils attempting to rescue the prince and his retinue. Many of your fellow militiamen are openly surprised by your bold move. The Earl, his first time noticing you since the start of the campaign, also seems impressed. Reputation with the Earl has increased, and reputation with the soldiers have increased. Several other soldiers follow your example and join the group, obviously wanting to keep up. Bartholomew is among them, who notes with a grin that you never cease to amaze him with your recklessness. However, considering what you've done for him, he simply has no choice but to follow you anywhere. Drawing his sword, the Earl himself leads you into an attack through a narrow street towards the prince and his men, who are practically surrounded in the town square nearby. Alright, now we have to keep Bartholomew alive. You soon find your path blocked by well-armed soldiers from the town garrison, clearly trying to cut off the prince's party from reinforcements. Alright, what do we have here? Fairly good chance of doing a powerful thrust to the body, which is only going to bring him to, say, half health. But it's my best chance of landing a hit. Of course, I could roll the dice and do a much stronger hit to the head at a better than 50% chance of landing. Or we could take a lesser chance of hitting the limbs and possibly injuring him, which in turn might help keep Bartholomew alive if he ends up injured. And honestly, because I don't want to do the 50-50 shot with the head. I don't like taking 50-50 shots because this game 50-50 is more like it's more like 100% chance of missing. As you saw, the 75% chance, I missed the 75% chance. The 75% chance to me is more like a 50-50 shot, and the 50-50 shot is more like a 10% shot. So that's the way I think of it in my head. So I'm going to go with the limbs in hopes that we injure this guy, which will help keep Bartholomew alive. And we didn't injure him, but we're all right. We're going to recover. Bartholomew should have recovered. He's going to allow himself... Ah, damn it. He poisoned Bart. That was just rude. Alright, well, 100% chance to hit the head. He should be dead. Okay, one down. Bart is... do you loot the bodies? Why? What kind of strange question is that? Of course! I need everything I can get my hands on. Leather boots. Thank you. Cross pendant. I'll take it. Proceed. You and the Earl arrived just in time to prevent the French from encircling the prince's retinue. Bloodied and tired, the prince immediately gives the order for a full retreat, which fortunately goes without incident. The battered town defenders hesitate to give chase and instead settle with the status quo restored. As you fall back to safety and catch your breath, you are slowly filled with the proud realization you've just managed to survive your first battle. While you came back to your senses and tend your wounds, the main force of the English army is steadily approaching the city. Columns of people, horsemen, and wagons, all stretching for several miles, flow from the horizon like an endless river slowly pouring around the city from all sides. Having found the sergeant among the survivors, you ask him what will happen now. He responds with only one word: siege. Chapter 1, The Siege of Cambrai. I never did introduce myself to the sergeant in the first chapter, did I? Over the next few days, you watch as a new, fully fledged city gradually grows all around the walls of Cambrai. Thousands of people, hundreds of tents and awnings, dozens of various siege and assault weapons, and a long line of convoys arrive every day from almost all directions. You would not dare to call all this a mere camp any longer. According to the sergeant, who is constantly aware of the goings-on, the king will not delay the siege. The success of the entire campaign depends on the speed of this attack, and any further delay will give the French a chance to thoroughly gather their strength. This is why the usual siege tactics, winning the city through a war of attrition, is not going to fly with Cambrai. The sergeant says the assault should take place in about a week, when the siege engines are fully deployed and the rest of the reinforcements have caught up with the army. For now, all you can do is take advantage of what peaceful days remain. You have received a salary in accordance with your rank of 55 florins, and you received a bonus payment in accordance with your prestige level of 131 florins. So that's the paycheck we missed out on the last time we were paid. Okay, and this is where we're going to stop this episode 1 of season 3 of Heads Will Roll. If you enjoyed this content, please do smash that like button, and any comments, etc., especially on the first episode of a playthrough, are immensely important for the playthrough to actually be viewed and seen. Engagement on YouTube really does matter, so please, again, smash that like button, consider subscribing, and until the next time, all peace.